As parents start making all of those preparations to send their kids back to school, we want to talk about preparations for students with learning differences. This includes ADHD, ADD, dyslexia, and more. This morning, we are learning about a health and digital platform called Parallel Learning. It's designed to help students by providing treatments and resources and much more. Joining us now to further explain is Jordan Wright, Chief Clinical Officer at Parallel Learning this morning. Thank you so much for joining us, Jordan.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so Jordan, can you tell us more about Parallel Learning and the different types of resources that it has for students and parents?
Sure. So Parallel Learning is a teleservices company. So we work to leverage technology. All of our services are virtual. We work with schools and school districts to make tele-assessments, psychoeducational evaluations, speech therapy, counseling, all these types of services more accessible to students so students can just log on and get the services they need, more efficient. We use technology to keep the wait times down, to keep the process moving so that we can actually do more evaluations with more kids and more kids for less money. For schools and school districts, and to improve effectiveness. So we can build in technology and processes that actually deepen the work that we're doing. So we work with schools and school districts to push in and seamlessly offer these virtual services.
Definitely much needed too at this point. So let's talk about, if parents are watching, students with learning differences, so they may go either undiagnosed or misdiagnosed. And why would you say that so many students do go undiagnosed?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of reasons that kids go undiagnosed. A lot of kids fly under the radar. And this is especially true for students of color. There's been a lot of talk in the media about over-identifying kids of color and putting them in special education. Research has shown actually in the South, in Texas, where I'm from, Houston, born and raised, it's actually the opposite. Kids of color are getting identified less. And there are a few reasons for this. One is they tend to be at less well-resourced schools. So there are fewer school psychologists, speech language pathologists, occupational therapists who can do the evaluations to identify these kids. Also, there's an idea of the educational system being stacked against kids of color. And so families may not trust the educational system nearly as much and may not ask for an evaluation. Right. And the final thing that probably contributes to students of color specifically being undiagnosed and underidentified has to do with personal bias. This isn't talked about enough. Teachers are amazing. Teachers are heroes and they do amazing work, but they're also humans. And historically and currently, we all have biases, and these biases may lead us to expect less from kids of color. So a white kid who's underperforming at school may be identified really quickly and say, this kid needs an evaluation to see if they have a learning difference, if they have a thinking difference. But kids of color who are struggling, this may be attributed to the fact that they are kids of color and maybe they're slower to learn, or they're not as resource rich at home and have families who read to them. And these biases can creep in and make sure that some of these kids just don't get evaluated for these learning differences and thinking differences.
And that is such a huge kind of culture change that we really have to tackle. So let's talk about the demand for special ed services and how it's changed at schools. What have you noticed? And how are schools responding to the work that you do?
Yeah, special ed services have changed pretty dramatically in the past few decades, and I think for the better. Special ed has shifted from just identifying and putting everybody into one room, a special ed self-contained classroom, anyone who is struggling with academics or anything else, and just sort of sticking them in a segregated classroom, to trying to push resources early on. They're really trying to say, this kid is struggling, let's give them some resources early on to see if that helps, to see if they reach up to their potential and access the curriculum. If not, then we know they need something more, and then we can get them evaluated and get them the resources they need to enable them to thrive.
That's huge. And parents also, they should know to ask, right? Just ask the question. Maybe that's the first step. What do you want parents to know if they're maybe unsure about this process or how they should navigate this with their schools?
Absolutely. Yeah. Parents need to be in constant communication with schools. And this is tough because schools are giant and have a lot of kids, and they're not always the easiest to communicate with. But being in touch with your student's teacher is key. There are some signs that a kid is struggling academically. There are some obvious signs like they're struggling to read or their math isn't very good. But there are other signs like school anxiety or school refusal, or kids who are just nervous to go to school or who are overly perfectionistic or a little bit down at school. These are also signs that there may be something going on with their learning as well. And that learning is just stressing them out, overtaxing them.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see. If Jordan, if families are watching right now and they just want to contact you guys, they want to go right to you. Can they find out more information? How can they contact you?
Absolutely. You can go to our website, parallellearning.com. All of our information is there. You can get me. You can get all of the information about our services, partnerships with schools. Everything is right there on our website at parallellearning.com.
All right. Jordan Wright, Chief Clinical Officer at Parallel Learning. Thank you so much for all of this great information this morning to help our parents out.